Caboodle. Did you say that you wanted to hear about the astrological transits for the new moon in Taurus? And did you want to be my kitty? Yeah. All right. This is my kitty Caboodle, and I'm Mark McNutt, and we're going to talk about the astrological transits here in the end of April in Taurus times and all that. There'll be two parts to this. One is talking about the here and now and all the stuff that's going on in the recent past and the recent future, and then a special edition on Saturn and Neptune going into Aries. So, Caboodle, let's get going, huh? All right, Sun and Moon in Taurus. Well, the new moon in Taurus is always new beginnings and all that, and this is a particularly maybe a stressful beginning because there's a T-square involved, and Sun and Moon in Taurus is also known as the start of Beltane and May Day and all that, although a lot of people like to celebrate lunar Beltane, which is 2 weeks later. But one of the big things going on now is Mars moving it back into Leo, where it was in the fall. So since about November, I think there was an election back in November, I'm not really sure, but since November, Mars has been like kind of licking at our heels and sort of poking us with his iron rods and spears and all that. Mars has to do with yang energy, motivation, drive, chutzpah, male dominance, all that kind of stuff. Mars doesn't have to be a domineering kind of an influence, but Mars will always be that strength in there. Mars in a fixed sign, like it is now, Mars in Leo, is very demonstrative is the right word. I love that word, demonstrative. It has demon in it, and but it really applies, because Leo is about, hey, look at me. It's about the very celebratory kind of dramatic kind of an energy. And so Mars, having just moved back into Leo, Mars is opposition Pluto, and then on the other side is that Sun and new moon in Taurus. So there's a T-square going on in fixed signs, in the beginning of the fixed signs. So if you're an early fixed sign kind of a person like Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, or whatever, Aquarius, you've been probably pretty rattled by what's going on now. But then all of us have, because we've just gone through just more aspects than I've ever seen any time in my 50-year career, particularly Mercury and Venus conjuncting, which is not unusual, except that they retrograded together while they were conjuncting, and so they both got into Aries, both moved back into Pisces, and then there's Neptune and Saturn in Pisces. So that's last month's news, is a lot of energy around Pisces, which is long suffering and can be very emotional. But we'll talk about Saturn and Neptune in a little bit. They're both moving into Aries, but on the other hand, Venus and Mercury also moving into Aries, and Mercury just zipping along now, as is his wont, or their wont, because he's actually non-gender identified planet, the only one that way. And so Mercury has to do with the mind and communication, and everything is at a lightning speed right now. Pay lots of attention, because the energy is being reshuffled and changing a whole great deal. So it feels like there's a logjam going on because of this short-term T-square, but the energy is about to move big time. So Mars is like really being in the moment, and a reminder of the drama of now, and that we sometimes have to go through a passage of drama, just like a child has to pass through that to be born, and maybe it's healthy, maybe there's a healthiness to this, but of course politically there's a lot to be said, and best not to be said astrologically, for the very reason that I like to be pure with my astrological influences, and a lot of what's going on now and the repercussions of right now are very political. And it's like a chicken and egg thing. It's sort of like, yeah, we have these kind of difficult aspects such as Mars opposite Pluto, which will happen for a few weeks every 2 years. That's going on now at the end of April, but then kind of moves a little bit into May. Um, Anyways, we're having that, which is about basically power struggles and about underlying currents of power, and so that's being brought to the surface in a very dramatic way right now. Um, and Pluto and Aquarius, well, a lot of people associate Aquarius with New Age and with uh, the highest. The highest energy of humanitarian kind of concerns and all that. And that can be true, but usually what I've seen with a major planet, Pluto, Uranus, other planets moving into Aquarius, is that usually Aquarius likes to rebel, so it's not necessarily, the first phase of it is not necessarily the brightest and the most positive. Um, oh, good, we have the next cat, and this is Apollo. And anyway, he's not that into astrology, but he loves. So Apollo, did you know we do have, as I just said, Mars opposition Pluto, and then the Sun and Moon in square with that. So this can bring up a lot of obstinacy, and it can mean sort of like a log jam, but that log jam is going to break, and so a lot of my viewers out there are probably kind of ready for this phase to be over yesterday, um, and it's going to go on for a bit, so we're not done yet, um, and so then yeah, that T square kind of mellows out as the month goes on, and we have all that joy of spring stuff. Venus has been moving in a conjunction with Saturn, because Venus coming out of retrograde, Saturn moving very slowly, and they've been in the tail end of Pisces together, kind of licking at each other's heels, which can be a very positive development. So putting politics aside and all that, Venus has to do with love and relationships and the social values in life, and conjunct Saturn. Saturn's the long term. It's like making plans for the future. I know a lot of people that are planning weddings right now, which would be very appropriate. This is if you want to make a commitment to your loved ones or to your immediate community. Venus conjunct Saturn that we've been experiencing. Good time to do it, and that stretches on for another week or two into May, and then so let's see. So Mars has been a real, Mars is really good for getting the energy worked up and for being really exciting and all that. But Mars can be too exciting, and Mars in Leo is the big fanfare, but it's not necessarily a sustaining fanfare, and I'm reminded by, the politics of the person that sees himself as a king right now, is, a Gemini Sun conjunct Uranus, and it's also Mars and Pluto in Leo rising. So definitely, that's the attention getter in there. So things can be very dramatic right now. And then the next phase, is that quite soon Jupiter moves from Gemini, where it's not really doing all that much right now in terms of its relation to the other planets, but Jupiter is going to be moving into Cancer, and there's Jupiter square Saturn coming up, and but Jupiter is sort of like Jupiter in Gemini is good for the oratory. It's good for the communication. It's good for networking and all that. And so the next phase we'll be moving into is with Jupiter in Cancer, which is about home and family and the nesting and all that. So at this time coming up, thinking about your summer and the coming year, it's like, what is your family? And what do you hold dear to you? What are the values that you hold dear? Because they're going to play out. so the final part of that is that about Saturn and Neptune um, being both moving into Aries together, and so a lot of exciting developments with that. And I'd like to talk about that separately this time, just because they're going to be going on for a while. So you might want to access that file, that YouTube video, which will be very short, a few times over the next year or so. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be talking to you very soon.